Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? We've seen a huge increase in replacement displays for various Game Boy models, and now there's a second option for the DMG. So how does it compare? Let's find out. In a previous episode, I covered an IPS screen mod for the original Game Boy. That one was a revision 2 kit, and since then a new revision 3 has become available. But around the same time, a brand new option from Funnyplaying came out. No doubt there are going to be questions about which one to go with, so the folks over at Retro Modding generously sent both my way to install and compare. They sent some other goodies along with as well, such as these custom UV printed replacement shells featuring a vaporwave theme. My donor Game Boy was in fairly rough shape. The shell had yellowed pretty badly, and the screen had a large patch of stuck pixels. A DMG in this condition is actually the perfect candidate for this mod, because all of the parts that are bad are ones that aren't needed anymore anyway. I got the handheld taken apart, then removed the motherboard from the back housing. I unscrewed the metal cartridge shield next, as that'll get reused with the new shell. Then I turned my attention to the front housing and got the PCB removed. The board itself isn't necessary for either of the display mods, but I needed to reclaim two parts: the rubber button membranes and the speaker, so they could be transferred to the modded console. I decided to install the so-called RIPS or generic version 3 kit first. It comes with not just a new LCD panel, but also a replacement front PCB and a converter board. A little bit of trimming needs to be done to the new shell to fit the screen. These two standoffs have to be removed, and this fin over by the power switch also needs to go. I really like using a pair of flush cutters for this, as they make the process easy and produce clean results. I'll include a link to my favorite pair down in the description. I got the new buttons and membranes dropped into the front housing next. When I installed the version 2 screen kit, I had to use some double stick tape to hold the display parts in place. This time, Retro Modding includes a custom 3D printed bracket for an easier and cleaner installation. I snapped the converter board into the bracket, then the replacement display drops in on top of that. I connected the cable from the screen to the converter board, then peeled the film off the screen and set the whole thing into place. The bracket cleverly fits over a couple of unused screw posts to hold it into alignment. Up next, I soldered the speaker to the replacement front PCB. The only function this board really serves is just as a way to connect the screen and speaker to the motherboard in the back of the shell, and also provide the button contacts. In that previous mod video, some people seem to think that this new PCB turned the handheld into a clone console of sorts. That's not the case at all. What makes the Game Boy a Game Boy is its motherboard, and that's staying original through this mod. That new PCB got dropped into the shell and screwed into place. Then I was able to connect the ribbon cable from the screen. A little bit of work needed to be done to the back housing. I had to trim down this bit of plastic in the contrast dial cutout to make room for the new control wheel. Then I could place the power switch slider and get the motherboard put back in and screwed down. Almost done with this one. I got the ribbon cable connected to the new front PCB, then the other end installed in the motherboard. The shell could then be closed up and screwed together. These replacement shells come with replacement battery contacts, but they're not installed by default. This is in case you want to use a rechargeable lithium polymer pack. If you'd rather use AA's, they just snap into place, no big deal. After that, I could stick down the new glass screen cover, and the mod was complete. So that was the version 3 kit, and installing the Funnyplaying screen is an almost identical process. It requires a bit less trimming, just the two standoffs at the top of the front panel, and that's because it uses a display that's a different size and shape. The RIPS kits use a widescreen LCD panel that's turned vertically, and that adapter board takes care of only showing the screen image inside the display cutout. The Funnyplaying screen is also IPS, but a bit closer to the dimensions of the original. That kit also includes a 3D printed bracket, which the screen just snaps into. Its converter ribbon cable sits on the back, and the display connector snaps onto it. While it's not totally necessary, I decided to hold it down to the back of the screen with some double-sided tape. Then it was just a matter of peeling off the protective film, putting the screen in place, installing the buttons and membranes, soldering the speaker wires, then screwing in the new front PCB. The boards between the two kits look almost identical, but they do have some differences, specifically in their connectors. The motherboard went into the new rear housing, then I got the ribbon cable connected between the two halves. It's not necessary to trim the contrast wheel area as the new dial is thinner, so it fits as is. The Funnyplaying kit comes with a custom glass screen cover that looks like the original, but to keep with the translucent theme of this new shell, I instead went with a clear one that Retro Modding sent along. So how do these screen options compare? Well, they're surprisingly different from each other despite their similar installation process. There are two improvements that the RIPS version 3 kit offers over the previous one. First, it fixes an issue with the middle shades of gray being flipped. The Tetris logo here is a good example. Second, it's supposed to improve the feel and accuracy of the buttons and D-pad, which is something some people had found issues with. Looking at the old and new PCBs, I can't really tell a difference. The pad design is identical, and they're both gold-plated. Both versions feel okay to me, but I've found that the biggest contributor to how Game Boy buttons work are the silicone pads that get installed. Original ones almost always are the best, and third-party replacements can be pretty hit or miss. So yeah, I'm not so sure about the button improvement. The Funnyplaying kit is like an entirely new experience in comparison. It offers a bigger image than either the version 3 kit or the original console, pretty much filling up the screen cutout, and that's why it comes with a custom glass cover. But the image quality is really different too. The version 3 display is very contrasty, with deep blacks and clear differences between the shades of gray. The Funnyplaying screen is a bit more subdued, and I think that's because they were going for a feel that was more like the original display, which itself didn't offer that great a contrast. It also has visible lines between the pixels, also like the original, which some Game Boy fans miss in this new crop of IPS kits. This does have the side effect of making the screen maybe look a little less crisp compared to the version 3 kit, but ultimately, it just comes down to personal preference. Both screens have about the same maximum brightness, and their viewing angles are really good too. Instead of a control wheel, the Funnyplaying kit has a rocker dial to change brightness, and there are more color options available too. It also features a bivert mode, which is great to see. One thing to note is that if you install it in a translucent shell like I did, there is some visible backlight bleed. I don't mind this myself, but it's something to be aware of. So, is one of these screen kits the clear winner? Well, I don't think so. Each has its pros and cons, really just around what the image they produce looks like. Other than that, they're pretty comparable, not just in price at about $70 US, but even the battery life between them is close to being the same. I tested them using a set of fully charged N-loop AA's and the screen at max brightness, running the Tetris demo loop, and they died within 45 minutes of each other, giving a total runtime between 12 and 13 hours. It really just comes down to what you prefer, a crisp, contrasty image, or a slightly bigger screen that still looks great but also tries to evoke some of the feel of the original. Installation is about as easy as it gets, and Retro Modding even makes the models for those custom brackets freely available for download if you want to 3D print one yourself, like in a different color or something. And speaking of different colors, I really dig these UV printed shells. Unfortunately, at the time this video went live, they're not available to ship to the US due to what I'm told are some logistics concerns. Hopefully that'll get sorted in due time. If you're wondering what the DMG I installed that version 3 kit in looks like, well, friend of the channel and fellow Vaporwave fan Pad Chennington did an unboxing video of it. It's got a pretty iconic design, so be sure to go check that one out. The link's down in the description. But overall, I continue to be impressed by the advancements in quality and ease of installation we've been seeing in Game Boy mods lately. As I've said before, now's a great time to get into the scene if it's something you find interesting. And when it comes to upgrading your beat-up, broken DMG with a modern, backlit screen, well, you can't really go wrong with either of these. I owe a big thank you, of course, to Retro Modding for sending the parts my way for this one. I'll include links to everything in the description. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram @thisdoesnotcomp. And as always, thanks for watching.